understanding the severity of the storm, no plans were put in place to survive. No survival plan, my friends, to overcome that serious economic storm that we were confronted with. But sometimes, we hate the things that we do like. The then Minister of Finance, in the same budget presentation, that if we were to come out of that economic storm, there must be, and I quote, understanding, patience, and sacrifice. Those were his words. Now we are asking the Grenadian people to make some sacrifice. You hear the other side? No, there should not be any sacrifice. So when you're there, it is okay for the people to make sacrifice, but when you're out, there should be no sacrifice at all. He further went on to say, this is not a time for unrealistic, unreasonable wage demands. But what are they doing now in opposition? Pushing workers to strike and to demand more, knowing the situation that we are in. But even worse, this is what he said in the same budget presentation. This is also not a time for some partners in the social arrangement to sit on the side and criticize without offering positive alternatives. Are we hearing any positive alternatives from the other side? None. All that we are hearing is destructive criticism, my friends. So you see how things could shift? From when you're in office to when you're in opposition. The debt restructuring that we are undertaking now, something that will save the Grenadian people millions of dollars. They're criticizing that. Our negotiations with Grenlec to secure lower rates for our people, they criticize, say we are against WRB and Grenlec. We are not fighting WRB, we are fighting for better and lower electricity rates for our people. But that they're condemning as well, my friends. And these are things that we cannot forget in moving forward. What then was our first action? What did we have to do on taking office? The first thing that we had to do, if you're in an economic storm, you must put in place a plan to survive. And we did not waste time in putting that plan to survive in place. And that plan took the form of a homegrown structural adjustment program. And that program was designed to restore the fiscal imbalance that I mentioned before. Because you cannot have a country moving forward where you're spending consistently more than you're earning on activities. And therefore we had no choice but to put in place a structural adjustment program, homegrown program, in order to survive the economic storm that the then Minister of Finance mentioned. As we all know, that structural adjustment program required some element of sacrifice. And we did not hide it. We told you so. That in order to come out of the economic crisis, there must be some element of sacrifice. And that sacrifice took the form primarily of asking you to pay a little more. Primarily from a property tax, and for those who are earning a salary, something in terms of income tax. Those are the principal taxes that were imposed that created some element among our people. But more than that, we had little or no choice. Because to come out of that crisis, as Barbados had done, and what did they do in Barbados? They laid off thousands of workers. He said, no, we will not go that route. Because that will be too painful. And we opted for asking our people to pay a little more in taxes, so at least we can weather the storm that the then Minister of Finance mentioned. My friends, this evening I can tell you, Workers have been paid on time, and many of them even got back pay under difficult conditions. And from all indications, the economy is growing again. We know that confidence is being restored and Grenada is being respected. And called not too long ago. Major international leaders, heads of government from the United Kingdom and Venezuela visited Grenada. All the countries they chose Grenada to visit. That is the level of that this government commands the national community weapon, and we cannot ignore that.
Home is supposed to be my comfort zone, yet I'm in fear and feel so alone.
My mother receives money. Yes, money from men who sexually abuse me.
I tried to tell my mom, but she won't listen to me. She said, he's my big brother, my uncle, your father, my man. Don't call anyone's name.
I never wanted this. I need to tell someone.
Please, help me.
A message from the Ministry of Social Development and its social partners.
In case of an earthquake and the place starts shaking, drop, cover, and hold on. Drop, cover, and hold on. In case of an earthquake,
there's a few tips that can keep you from harm. In case of an earthquake, you gotta stay calm. Move away from doors, windows, and things that can fall. Try not to use steps or elevators at all.
drop, protect your head on your face. Don't go running all over the place.
Cover,
Under a bed or a table, against a wall that's firm and stable.
hold on.
You must hold on, don't panic, stay
Don't
calm.
move until the shaking stops. Drop, cover, and hold on.
Drop, cover, and hold on. In case of an earthquake.
Drop, cover, and hold on.
Learn how to protect yourself during an earthquake. Log on to weready.org. That's weready.org for more information.
Stepping off the plane, it's so easy to breathe again. Life in the big city has finally took its toll. And it's been so long, but I'm finally home. And what better place to rest my weary bones than on this beautiful island where there's so much to see. Every corner I turn, there's something there to remind me of my nation
Accountability,
and what it means
we
to
are practicing fiscal responsibility, and that is the principle again in the But all of these achievements would not have been possible without your sacrifice, the uncompromising support of our social partners, and we cannot underestimate the significance of having the social partners on board with us. Because without their support, this is not possible. The trade unions, the churches, private sector, NGOs, they all came on board because they know that what we were doing was in the best interest of our country and not for political expediency. And that is a very significant outcome. But let me warn you that we are not entirely out of course. As I said before, the fiscal deficit of $80 million has now been transformed because of efforts we have made to a small current surplus. From $80 million deficit, a small current surplus. But that surplus should not be misconstrued that we have money to spend on everything. Because without a surplus, have been criticized for not delivering on our promises. I am saying that this criticism is unfair. With regards to the promises that we have made, I can assure you, some have already been delivered, others have been delayed, but let me assure you again that unlike previous administration, none of the promises will be denied. It will take some time, but we will not deny you the promise that we have made. And I think I will. You know, some people believe that government is like instant coffee. You put it in now and then you get results. But even the same past Minister of Finance, in a presentation he made, said that we don't expect things to happen for 2 years. He said projects will take at least 3 years before they can be implemented, but now they have to implement in less than 3 years. We are saying that in time we will deliver on the promises that we have made. I want to speak of the promise delivery in the St. Patrick's area. Brothers and sisters, despite the difficult financial situation that we inherited and the tough measures that we had to take, we have delivered in St. Patrick's on many of the promises that we had. Let us look at schools. Right next door, we have a $10 million school infrastructure in the form of a technical wing for the McDonald College. And that was built, some will tell you, well, we need to design. That was built entirely under the auspices of the New National Government, from beginning to end. And let us not forget that. As a result of that wing, this school will be able to expand its curriculum to offer 4 more technical subjects that are needed by our kids, especially those who are academically challenged. They need to find curriculum to learn a skill. But not only for the college, but for the community at large. They will benefit as a result of this building of the technical. Very soon, St. Patrick's Anglican School will be rehabilitated at a cost of $304 million, again providing a better environment for teachers. Controlled Secondary School. In recent discussions with the Caribbean Development Bank, they have agreed to finance the construction of a technical wing for Controlled Secondary School. This will be with regard to our teachers, as you know by now, over 205 of our temporary teachers have been upgraded to the status of permanent teachers, and many of them are from the St. Patrick's area. For the year so far, we have awarded 140 scholarships at an approximate cost of over $40 million, my friends. Many again of the recipients are from the St. Patrick's area. Area of social services, over 650 family members are benefiting from the SEED program. That is to say, assistance for the poor and needy, and assistance for our children to go to school at MCC, and Europe, and St. George's University. That again is an The CCC was chased out of Grenada, so if we did not bring them back, we would not have that farm road and other farm roads that we do have throughout the country. Not too far from here, we built a major piece of infrastructure road, the Letitia Cato Lane. Many of you were there for the opening, which connects High Street to La Fortune. In Chantimel, the Monjalou Highway. So instead of going up and coming back, you could go up and go right across, my friend. That is progress under the New National Party. Behind Duquesne Expressway, for the first time, people behind Duquesne have a major road, and many families who left are saying that they want to go back behind Duquesne because of the New National Party's effort to give them road, water, electricity. Down there, for recreation ground, as you know, the project is on, the lighting, an upgrade. And when this project is complete, my friends, it will be second only to the National Stadium as a major sporting and recreational facility. The hard court right there in Sautez, work is on to restore basketball in the parish, my friend. Under the BNTF, the fishermen of Davie will soon have the lockers as well as recreational facilities, something that they've been longing for the longest while. The community center in Chantimel, which is under threat because of soil erosion, the construction of that retaining wall will start very soon, I can assure you. And MAREP has already put out tender for the restoration of the Carib Stone at Punctrul. My friend, these are just some of the achievements. I can go on. But let me tell you this, none of this, and I'm not massaging anybody's ego, none of this would have been possible without the courage, the vision, foresight of our political leader and Prime Minister, Dr. the Right Honorable Kate Michel. A man who knows how to negotiate, a man who knows how to get things done. Whenever he travels, he comes back with something for the Grenadian people, my friends. And that is the difference. In the past, when they go, they say they come back just with ideas. He comes back with resources to help build our country, my friend. That's the difference. But as I said before, I don't want you to believe that everything is right. We have some concerns, and I must express those concerns as well. There is still some concern that the level of unemployment in this area is too high. And notwithstanding the fact that economic activities are taking place in the country, we would like to see a better geographic balance. We want to see some more activities in the northern part of the island. And that will require a collective effort of the government as well as the private sector, on all of us with entrepreneurial skills, because we can't depend on government alone to create jobs. Government will provide the enabling environment, but as individuals, we have to be creative and assist in job creation. There is still concern with regards to housing. Housing is a critical need. And notwithstanding that we have provided some support, there is still a significant unmet demand for housing. And again, the government has decided that come next year, more emphasis will be placed on housing, and the Prime Minister, I think, will elaborate on that. The St. Patrick Road project, something that we've been asking for, a project that will run from St. Mark right up to St. Andrew, northeast. We have to ensure that this project gets on stream because the roads are deteriorating and some of the bridges are deteriorating as well. The Sautez, the erosion taking place in Lower Sautez, we have to address that as well, my friend, because a number of buildings are under threat because of the significant erosion that is taking place. And there is still, we can do some more with regards to upgrading our historical and cultural sites. St. Patrick is the historical and cultural center of Grenada, and we must do more to showcase St. Patrick as the historical and cultural capital of Grenada. Streetlights, we have not received any streetlights in the past 2 years. Again, that's a national issue. We are working with Grenlec to ensure that the new lights that they will get will be available soon and will be able to provide your people with some of the streetlights that they have been asking for. Brothers and sisters, I want to close because time is running out. I see the press secretary is looking at me. But I want to mention two things. You see, some of us believe that we could lie our way into the parliament of the country. And I want to mention two. I've listened to, I'm getting excited. I listened to the leader of a major political party recently, and he was on all three networks telling the Grenadian people that this government has not paid 1 cent into the NIS. What a total lie, total fabrication. The evidence is there that between 2013 and now, this government has paid over $65 million into the NIS in both employer and employee's contribution. And even more significantly, they did not pay, and we had to pay down the arrears as well. That's a fact. So why make such a blatant lie? But sometimes they say the deputy follows the leader, because I've listened to the deputy as well. You know, this thing is contagious, you know. And on more than one occasion, the gentleman been saying that as parliamentarians, we receive over $11,000 a month for our constituency. What a total lie again. Parliamentarians do not receive 1 cent for the running of the constituency. Let me say it again. We receive not 1 black cent for the running of our constituency offices. The fact is that all expenses are paid by the parliament, the office of the parliament. That's paid directly. And for us in St. Patrick, my friend, let me just tell you what the cost of running the office is. Because I don't know where the $11,000 come. Wages for the 3 workers, $2,400. Utility bills, $150, and that's month. Rent, $900, total $3,450. If this is $11,450, then I don't know what kind of mathematics is that. And we have a mathematician here. So thank you very much, and I know that the Prime Minister will elaborate on some of the national issues that I've mentioned. But again, I hope that you will be better prepared to ask questions and to make constructive criticism when necessary. And remember, give us the praise when necessary too, because we could do with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brother Anthony Boson. And brothers and sisters, there you had it. This is your MP at work. So time comes again. If you do not think that he is doing enough now is the time to tell him so that you could give him a 3-peat, a 4-peat. Thank you. I am now, for those of us who are standing at the back, some of us may not have legs as strong as mine. We still have a few seats remaining up here. So you can feel free to come forward and occupy those seats. And now, I think is the moment that most of us have been waiting for. I want to recognize, before this very special person comes to the podium, our 2 ministers who just came in, Minister Clarice Modest-Cohen and Minister Alvin Dabrio. Let's hear a round of applause for these 2 ministers. And brothers and sisters, this man needs no introduction. His work speaks for itself. Our Prime Minister, Dr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Brother Andal. And of course, to my colleagues, first-year parliamentary representatives St. Patrick West, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the parliamentary representative for St. Mark's, Brother Dabrio, the Minister in the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries and so on, and the parliamentary representative for St. John's, and of course, your parliamentary representative for St. Patrick East, Brother Paul, my sisters and brothers, and specifically the beautiful young students here tonight. As I see you, I remember my young days in secondary school. Looking beautiful. So it's so nice. But I want to say this before I say anything else. Coming here tonight, when I passed Guam, the amount of rain I saw coming down, I thought, well, we should turn back, because I don't know that you will see anybody be able to come out to a meeting. So this size of turnout here tonight must be a very special one. I honestly believe that is sending a real strong message. You must be pretty comfortable and happy with what is taking place in your country. You may not all be feeling that what you want to see has occurred, but I think you are very hopeful that things are moving in the right direction. So I am extremely proud and happy to see so many of you here tonight. I could not believe it, and I was telling the parliamentary representative, Brother Bosin, that we shouldn't try and keep you too long because it's tough outside there. But you know, just a little joke, yesterday in 2 sessions, we are having government level and the party level. We asked people to pray. And in one session, the first person was praying to asking God to stop the rain. And in the next session, the other one was saying, thanking God for the rain. So I thought if God has to listen to both of them, we're in a lot of trouble. He'd be a very confused God. Sisters and brothers, Brother Boson has the right, as a parliamentary representative, to spend the time that he spent in going through all aspects of government activities and giving you basic information as to what's happening in the constituency of St. Patrick West, because this is a forum for the constituency. So I would not spend a lot of time adding too much, except to make some points of clarification and some issues. Because this session, as was well articulated by the chairperson, Brother Handel, that is mainly about you. Huh? You hear all of us, you hear both Mr. Bosin, you hear myself, Sister Modeste and others, you hear us regularly. We want to hear you tonight. This is your session. And as Brother Bosin said, the things that are working, we'd like to hear about it too. And to reinforce that we need to do more and more because it's working. And if there are areas of weaknesses, then you ought to tell us, because we don't believe that we are perfect government. No one is perfect, only the Almighty is. And we are always very open to receiving information from our people. And I'm very happy to have our students here tonight, as I said before. And so we won't want to keep it too long, because I know your mothers and your parents will be wondering about the Prime Minister keeping you too late in the night, and especially you have to go back to school. But let me make this. The fact is, we have come a long way. There's no doubt about it. The people who are watching us regionally and internationally, they are complimenting this government for what we are doing. They are praising not just the government per se and the leadership of the government, those of us in the cabinet, but they're praising you, the people, for understanding what you have to do to get your country back on the right footing. In other words, a lot of times leaders might want to do certain things was because the people are not accepting it, they are not able to do it. So if you did not heed our call and accept responsibility, we could not be here talking about the number of things that we're talking about right now. We could not. I'm very proud to be leading a country of people who at this point in their history understand the necessity for the things that we are doing, and also saying to themselves they want to lay a strong foundation for our children and grandchildren. That's why I make the observation of the young people here tonight. Because it's more about you, sisters and brothers. When we get $400 million debt relief, it's more about you. Because it means that your period of time of leadership in the country, which has to come, you will not have to deal with $400 additional million of government debt. That money could be spent more to improve the quality of life of the people of the country, to provide more services, more education, more health care. So any one of us talking a language that says we should not get the $400 million means that we don't care about you and your future. So if one says that the NIS should not do anything, the government is wicked, we should make no sacrifice at all, it means they're saying they don't want us to get $400 million debt relief. And that is selfish, because it means that they're talking and thinking politics and they're not thinking about the country. In other words, make it hard for the government. Make them have to spend more money on debt so they cannot bring benefits to you, so I will get political power. Isn't that very selfish? But I'm not surprised, because that's the mindset. Some people care nothing about this country. All they care is about getting positions. But I'm telling you this, to have position and power and you are not helping your people, that is no position at all. But if you don't like people and you have no heart, all you like to do is sit upon the throne and enjoy yourself. There are countries and places where people are presidents or prime ministers and they enjoy life while most of the people are suffering. I don't know what kind of leader is this. It seems to me when you go home on your nap, you must have a conscience. So we are very happy, sisters and brothers. When I look at some of the, I was telling my members this week, the budget we're preparing this year, the document says, and it's this public document, at the top of the ministry, each ministry is a minister, and following him or her is the permanent secretary. Can you believe? The minister is the head of the ministry, but his salary in the document that we have now and the one coming, his salary is $67,000 a year. But the permanent secretary, and that's not an attack on the permanent secretary, I'm just giving you the facts, whose ministry the minister is leading, he or she is making at least $79,000. So the permanent secretary is getting at least $12,000 more than the minister. I want to make in this point to tell you how worthless some people are when they're trying to imply that ministers are doing well. They are sacrificial lambs, sisters and brothers. Let us get it straight. Ministers who are genuinely serving the country and things to help the people, I'm telling you, they are sacrificial lambs. Because when a minister gets his salary, he can't say, well, I'm going home and this is for the kids and this is for the wife or husband and to take care of family needs. He has to take more than half of it in most cases and help other people who come to him. Someone working with the government who's not a politician, his salary comes to him directly. And he does what he wants with it for himself. He doesn't have to give anybody, or whatever he does with tithes or whatever, that's his own personal reasons. In other words, I'm making the point that no one tell you that your parliamentary representatives and ministers are in fact benefiting from government. They are making enormous sacrifices. Sometimes I myself feel sorry for some of them because I know some of their needs and I know they can't meet it. So I want to be clear, because some people use all sorts of falsehood. I want to just talk on the NIS a bit because I think it's important. Sisters and brothers, I've been in government since 1984. So one of my young sisters say, "What? That man old we?" That tells you, sister, the experience I have. I'm telling you this. In 1984, after we came into government, Mr. Blaze was Prime Minister. By 1985, we passed a bill in Parliament which removed income tax in the country. And we did not put an appropriate system in place to collect revenues. So every month, the government was picking up little and no revenue. And Mr. Blaze, as Minister of Finance, when the government I was in then, and Tillman was in that same government too, was taking money every month from the NIS, borrowing the NIS money to pay salaries of the workers. So by the end of our term in office in 1989, 1990, we had borrowed over almost $50 million from the NIS. That's the first NNP government. The NDC took over government in 1990, and they borrowed millions of dollars from the NIS to meet a number of initiatives of government. The government was headed by Nicholas Braffett and then George Brezan. The NNP took over government in 1995. We borrowed money from the international community, and we paid the NIS a lump sum for all the other government's deeds, if including the first NNP and NDC. Over $25 million we paid them one time. So we borrowed money from out and paid the NIS. So the NNP was the only government in the last 30 years that paid the NIS major sums of money. No other government did it, my friends. These are just facts. Tony already pointed out, the last government was selling your asset and sometimes selling it to the NIS at the end of the month to pay salaries. Now, you know, if they have to borrow money from the NIS, sell asset to the NIS to pay salaries, there will be no way they will be paying the deduction from the workers to the NIS because they had no money. So from 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, the contribution of the workers that they deduct from the salary amounted, in total, they owed the NIS $24.3 million. These are facts right at the Ministry of Finance. So the NDC government was one of the worst government, most irresponsible government in destroying the NIS as it is as a serious financial institution. These are simple facts. We came into government. Within 2.5 years, but the Boston tell you 65, they had checked it. The data now presented today, the final document says we have paid $68.8 million in just 2.5 years to the NIS. We paid over $9.4 million that the NDC did not pay in their time. So they owed $24.3 million. We paid $9.3 million of that already. So we still owe from what NDC owe $50-something million. And most times we paid our contributions that we deducted. We only owe for September, October, and November in 2.5 years. Sisters and brothers, could you believe a man will stand up on TV and radio and tell the nation that NNP bad pay, NNP want to destroy the NIS? I watched this man on TV and I felt sorry for him because he sung like a fella like going crazy. It didn't seem normal because he talking the figures and he looked vexed. I said, why vexed for? It is sad It is sad, sisters and brothers, that I have to make this point because you must know the intention is to confuse you. So we have no doubt that we have to explain the facts. We feel strongly is an important institution. We mentioned a number of times that the PRG government made a number of mistakes, but this was one of the positive things, like the airport and the NIS that they initiated was a positive. And we will do nothing as a government to jeopardize this NIS because of importance for the workforce of the country now, before, and in the future. So sisters and brothers, I think it's important. But I want to make one point further because you have to talk, we have to protect this country. We have to protect this country. When we left government in 2008, a certain individual called Mr. Grindberg sued the government of Grenada for $500 million a suit in the United States. Quotes. He's claiming that Gregory Bowen, the Minister of Energy in my time, in that period, asked him for a bribe. And that we taking away the rights that of his contract, that we owe him $500 million US. The suit was not against Gregory Bowen. The suit was against the country called Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. And if you understand the laws of the United States, no matter how frivolous a lawsuit is, if you don't defend it, the judge rule on the facts presented. So if you don't come and present a defense, it means that the court will rule that you owe the person $500 million US. So we got lawyers to defend the country. We lost elections in 2008. The NDC came in. Do you know that Nazim Burke, the Minister of Finance, refused to engage the lawyers to defend the case? How many of you actually know this? He refused. And when he was asked, he said it's nothing to do with him. It's Gregory Bowen and Keith Mitchell. My friend, this is not a joke, and that's a serious matter. We are now in opposition. When the lawyers called and said, we have not been paid, and the government says it doesn't want us to represent them anymore, so we are dropping the case. We say, well, no, the country will be in trouble. We called on Tillman as Prime Minister. I called him myself, and I said, you know how serious it is for the country. Forget me, but defend the country. Keith Mitchell can defend himself. Gregory Bowen can defend himself. Not a drum was heard. When we realized the case is coming up and the country would be put to a debt of $500 million US, I called my friends in New York, business friends, myself and friends here in Grenada. And we decided, we're in opposition, we're not working. We're going to raise the money, some of the money, and get a law firm to go to court. We in opposition raised the money and got a law firm to go and defend the country, you know. Not me, not Bowen. Sisters and brothers, thank God. And you see that God is a good God. We won the case against Grindberg, while the government of the day here was encouraging Grindberg to encourage him to destroy us, because they feel if the case comes against the government and the country is $500 million, they could blame Bowen and Keith Mitchell, and we will be destroyed politically. So for the destruction of me or Bowen, the man was prepared to put $500 million US against the country. You know what that is? That's 1.35 billion EC dollars. That is the kind of person that you have in the politics of the country talking about political power today. So if we did not defend this case, you would be balling today. I would be balling, all of us. But a man would have power, and he don't care. He has power. So power, that's what counts. So you're talking about debt relief today. We would have had to get debt relief of a much larger amount. In other words, the sacrifice would have asked to be made would have been much larger than we're asking you to do now, because of the debt we would have had against it. My sisters and brothers, I spend time on this because I think it's important. And I could give several instances, but I tell you something. Brother Boson said something a while ago. Lying is a contagious thing. If you start lying, my mother and father used to tell me that they used to beat us anytime they catch us lying. Because they say if you start to lie and we don't straighten you out, you'll become a permanent liar. Not a lawyer, a liar. And it seems like some people, if you give them a title, bound to lie, that is an appropriate description. You can't tell the truth. Sometimes somebody telling the truth is the best thing for them, but because they're lying so much, they're lying on themselves. Because they're just bound to lie. That is what you have to see. So anytime you see certain people on TV, they say, oh, bound to lie again on TV. That's all you have to say. And that's enough. Because if a man could tell lies like what you have told, I don't think you can trust any individual with political power. Tonight, sisters and brothers, I'm sorry I had to spend the time on this because it's your night, but I felt it was necessary to explain this thing because of the seriousness of the actions of those individuals. And I say to you, you are in good hands. Your future is protected. Those of us who are in government today know we have to leave it one day and we have to leave a better country than we have now. So we are working hard to make sure when we exit, this place is a better place than we inherited. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Brothers and sisters, there you had it, face to face with your officer. At this point, we know it's getting late and we have to be mindful of the weather. So this is your time. However, because of the number of persons in here tonight, we are going to limit it to one question per person, and we will give you 1 minute. 1 minute to ask your question or to make your comment, because we are trying to get comments and questions from as much persons as possible. So the floor is now open. You can indicate that you want to ask a question or make a comment by the raise of your hand. We have a cordless mic on the floor. Give your name. We have Mr. James at the back. Can you come forward, please?
Good night, everyone. Honorable Dr. Kip Mitchell, Parliament Representative for St. Patrick East and West, Parliament Representative for St. Max and St. John, good night. Our Prime Minister have one question here for you tonight, and I just serve it for the workers at Montreal Estate. The Montreal Estate facing a problem. One, in the NDC time, they take out 2 days and say that they employ more people at Gramba Estate. So we lose that 2 days. So he's getting 8 days. That's $332 a fortnight. Right now that Gramba Estate is privatized. I want to know if you could get back these 2 days, please.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm sure Brother Dabber is not also aware of this. He's in the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries. But what I can tell you is, you know the reason why we commercialize? We advertise, we commercialize. So the estate is still owned by government. What we do is lease it and contract it out to increase production and to make sure that we can develop our food security and other aspects of agricultural production in the country as a whole. It has to be run more as a business than we did before, where government just spending money most times and you're really not sure exactly what's taking place. So that is something we will find out. Brother Darboe is here. We'll have the information. We'll find out about that 2 days that you're talking about and be able to give you, but I don't know much about that myself. So to answer you directly and say that we will certainly bring back the 2 days without knowing the facts, I would not be responsible if I just tell you this. I would be behaving like another fellow called Buntulai. And I won't want to do that.
Thank you very much,
Right,
Mr.
my
Prime
brother?
Minister.
Okay.
Mr. Godwin Phillip.
Yeah, Honorable Prime Minister, Parliamentary Representative of St. Patrick East, and other members of the head table. Sorry the time is short, but I just want the audience to answer me. If anyone feel, how do you think, whether the Prime Minister work is an easy job, show by the raising of your hands. If anyone think that the Minister of Education, who was doing so much to reorganize the education system in Grenada, if it's an easy job, show by the raising of your hands. All right, everybody agree that is. I say that, Mr. Prime Minister, because whether NNP or not, everybody believe is business as usual. I want you to tell us, as you always say that we couldn't sell more assets. I know, and others know, that you a mash-up country in 2013. How did you handle to pay salaries for the first 6 months when you was in office? Because other people think it's business as usual. Secondly, quickly, I want us to step up on the PR in St. Patrick West. I don't know if you're allowed to give me radio time or whatever. GIS is doing a lot on country-wise. But there's a lot of things what Minister Boson is doing for St. Patrick West, what is hiding. How much of us telling our children that he's instrumental in putting one of the best wing in McDonald College, although after being a teacher for years, would you believe that he taught me from Tribe here? And now I know he's very instrumental. So I believe we need to have a serious PR on the ground because there is a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Phillip.
I just want to comment briefly on the point made about the public relations. I think that's not a criticism of what happened in St. Patrick's alone. It's a national problem. I think the party and the government understands that we have not been talking enough about the things that we are doing positively throughout the country, whether it's the east and west of St. Patrick, Victoria, my constituency. We need to do a lot more, and we've discussed it even at my management meeting this morning. We discussed that issue. The question you raised about paying salaries, we realized that we had to get down. First of all, when we got there, we realized we won the election on the 19th of February, remember? And February is the shortest month of the year. And the 28th, we had to pay salaries. And Treasury completely, there was nothing there because the government had spent money hoping election time, give out material, do all kinds of stuff, hoping to win votes. And therefore, we had to pay salaries. The banks won't give you any money because they had a problem then with the previous government closing the parliament. So I had to do two things. And a lot of people for debts, the Caribbean Development Bank, the Commonwealth, everybody calling for money. So the first thing I did was call the banks in, all the managers, and I said to them, I wasn't responsible for what happened in the last several years. But you can't allow me, the people just gave the government a tremendous mandate, all the seats. You cannot allow the first month to come and people don't get paid. You'll be starting me off on a bad footing. I guarantee you, if you help now, we will make sure things improve and you won't have to be doing that continuously. So all the banks were called in and said, we must give us the overdraft to pay salaries and to meet some basic expenses. The bank got together. Most of the banks are not owned locally, so they had to call their headquarters abroad. And they all came back within 3 days and said, well, they got the okay to support us. But that was not enough, because we owe people. The Caribbean Development Bank was downgraded twice because of Grenada. And they were going to be downgraded a third time. And all the Prime Minister calling on Grenada, you can't do that again to us. So we had to find millions of dollars to pay Caribbean Development Bank and all the peoples. So I called the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Kamala Possessor, and I said, look, I need your help. And Trinidad gave us some resources immediately. That, my brother, was responsible why we are able to meet our commitment in February of 2013. And subsequently, we made certain decisions that help improve the revenue collections and so on, and that helped us to move from one place to the next. So it was a lot of innovation and a lot of, in fact, bold decisions. And the fact that people had confidence in us. If the previous government had attempted to do that, they would not have got that support. And that is precisely why we were able to deal with the first few months in government, which was the toughest month that you have seen. We had $110 million plus in unpaid claims in the Treasury. That's a paid claim by services to government, and the government refused to pay. Whether it's contractors, whether it's people and service providers, like people giving materials. The first year in government, when we did the budget 2014, as all the members here would know, we put about $7 million for house repair. But we could hardly repair any house because all the money went to pay the debt that was house repair that was given by the previous government coming to elections. They just give out material hoping to win people's votes. So we couldn't go to a firm and say, look, give us more material to help people, when in fact we haven't paid for last year's one. So we had spent most of the time just paying debts. 2015 is the first year we could say, well, we have some room to start doing additional things that we want to do. And I expect next year, but the Bosun pointed out, we accept the fact that house relief programs are probably one of the most important programs in the country, outside of unemployment, that we have to deal with. So next year we'll see a lot more money into house repair and soft loans for people to build a house, renovate their homes, and so on. So I just wanted to make this point.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. We have a McDonald College student here.
Good night. My name is Dylan Franklin. Good night to the Prime Minister, the Minister of Education, and everybody inside the building tonight. I'm a resident of the Mount Craven area, and there is a big project going on in the Mount Craven with the Fund Recreational Ground. Everyone is concerned about this project. They are talking about the lights, but everyone wants to know that if it's only the light that you're going to put in the for recreational ground, we want to know that if you're going to fix the pavilions and the grounds, because I'm concerned for myself because I'm an athlete and I want good grounds for me to run on. So I want to know.
Thank you very much.
Very, very good question. It will make little or no sense to have a recreation ground with, I'll say, lights second only to the National Stadium, and the ground itself is no good, or you don't have no pavilion. I spoke to the minister responsible for sports, and she has given me the assurance that the ground will be upgraded as well. And if, I don't know when has to pass down there, we have started some work on the pavilion in terms of removing what is there. So that again will be part of the total rehabilitation for recreation. Lights, improving the ground, and improving the pavilion.
Thank you, Minister.
I just wanted to make this point. As the young man stood up, you know something? West Indies seen trouble for fast bowlers. You're tall, you have the height to know. I think you should look at them.
Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes. We do.
Anyway, good evening, Mr. Prime Minister. And what I want to find out, what is the government doing to help all these Grenadians that have so much money tied up in CLICO? I mean, this backhaul secretariat, it seems as they need some payment up front before they can do something about it, you know. So what is the government doing? Okay. As a matter of fact, what's going to happen, some of us might end up losing twice. If you're going to pay money to get money that is already owing to you, what is the government doing about it to help the people, help us?
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah. Well, all right, my brother. That one is a very tough one, I can tell you this. Because don't forget, CLICO is a private company, and the decision of an individual to invest in CLICO is a private affair. We realize this cost the country and individuals an enormous amount of money. The money was used primarily by the headquarters in Trinidad and Barbados, and therefore we feel they have a moral responsibility. Now, both BICO, is British American, and CLICO, I'm treating them as one right now, although they're separate to some extent. Trinidad government has accepted the fact, and they helped provide some resources to pay some of the BICO policy holders. CLICO, on the other hand, not much has been done, except Trinidad has paid billions of dollars to their people in Trinidad, and they have made no provisions for us. I went to Trinidad not last week, 3 weeks ago, to have discussion with the Prime Minister, the new Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Rowley. We discussed several issues. One of the main ones was the CLICO situation. What he said to me was that no provision was made by the previous government. This is what he said to me. I don't want to get into the politics of Trinidad and Tobago, because that's for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. No provision was made to pay the people in the islands, St. Vincent, Grenada, and so on. There were only provisions to pay the Trinidad taxpayers. But he said he heard that there are initiatives here to get private lawyers to take the case to court, in the Trinidad courts, to get CLICO to meet its responsibility to the policy workers in Grenada and St. Vincent and other countries. And he had no difficulty with that, because that is something, it was in a private company and the individual people. Trinidad accept the fact that it has a moral responsibility to aid the effort, but it must be clear the thing is between the policyholders and a company. Now the company now, the good thing about what's happening is the company has some assets. They own over 25% of Republic Bank, and that is doing well. They own the gas plant in Trinidad, and that is liquefied activity in Trinidad, and that is also doing well. Angosturas also is doing well. So it's saying that could be sold to raise some capital to help to meet the responsibility to the policyholders. So the initiative taken in Grenada is going to be given strong support by the government to deal with the thing through the courts of Trinidad and Tobago, because that is an important way to go. And hopefully we will see some result in the end. But this is a troubling thing. Let me tell you something. I know workers in Grenada that took their pension money, work all their life, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and invested it in CLICO. Today they're retired, some of them are sick, and they can't get a cent. It is painful when some of them come to you, and so on. If the government had money to do it, we'll do it, but we can't go and promise to pay policyholders for something the government wasn't legally responsible for. So we will do what we can and everything possible to aid the effort to a resolution. But it is a very painful thing. And you know what is sad about this? The people who ran CLICO, they are living nice life, comfortable life out of poor people, hard-earned money, who ride in private plane, have gated community in Florida and other places, living nice. while these poor people suffers. That is the unfortunate thing about the present situation. So my brother, we are 100% to deal with that problem, but it's not going to be an easy one. But we'll work together, see how we can correct it.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister.
Good night, everyone. I'm Indra Francois. Actually, I'm a postgraduate of the Cuba Grenada Scholarship Program, and I graduated with a Bachelor of Nursing degree.
Repeat what you said, sorry.
I'm a postgraduate.
Yeah.
I graduate. Sorry. From the Grenada Cuba Scholarship Program, right? I returned to Grenada with a bachelor degree in nursing, and reporting to the Ministry of Health, I've been told by the CNO that to obtain our license, that we need to sit a regional exam, which is a decision taken by the Regional Board of Nursing, I've been told. So my question here tonight is whether or not the government know that this decision was made by the Regional Board, because also I've been told by her that she never knew that we were in Cuba studying, because she never knew that there was a group of students studying nursing in Cuba until we showed up at our office to present our papers and to ask whether when we'll be granted our license.
Thank you.
So it seems to me like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, so I'm just asking for some answers, please. Because if there is no employment here for us, then I believe we should be permitted our
Thank you very
license
much.
to look elsewhere.
Okay.
My sister, my heart goes out to you.
Yeah.
People like yourself. I have had a couple of cases. Now, there are rules in the game. I have no difficulty with the regional body trying to standardize nursing services. That's what we're trying to do throughout the region. There's nothing wrong with that. But my own solution, which I've spoken to the minister about, we as government should be able to give a provisional license. While you move towards doing the regional exams to get the regional certificate, a provisional license gives you the opportunity to obtain employment. That came last week, and I gave the minister that direction. So I assume soon you would have a resolution with a provisional license while you pursue, because there was a case of a young lady who came. She got an offer of employment from a private institution here, and all she wanted was a license to be able to work. And we refused to allow her to work on the basis that she had no license. She had to wait for this. And I said, we can't do this. A provisional license is acceptable, so she can continue to be employed while we seek to get the regional certificate in place. I think that's how we should go. So I expect you should hear from them soon. Okay?
Thank you very much. Next question, please. Or comment.
Hello, good night. I'm Crowley Mark. And I just basically want to ask questions regarding the taxes, because I'm not too very clear on the taxes, but I know that there is going to be an increase on the gas tax. But I just wanted to ask, was it possible for the tax to be just a little bit less increase than 150? Could it have been 50 cents? Or the taxes as it relates to income taxes and all the other taxes that have been like plaguing Grenada, it is something that is very burdensome, all right? Everybody is paying tax. So at the end of the day, it's affecting every single body. And I haven't really seen, I've been asking questions, and I have not really gotten the answer that I need. It's like, what are the benefits for persons after so many times? Say you're working for over $3,000 a month, and you have to pay your tax, right? You're paying over $600 in tax. What are the benefits for them? Are they going to be able to get tax returns at the end of the year? Are there policies in place that's set for those things for the island? It's something that is a bit, it's a bother to me as a young person, because I myself personally want to eventually get into the business, you know, get into doing a business on my own or so, and eventually I would have to then pay taxes and so forth, but I would want to know that there are benefits in after giving so many monies in tax? Am I going to be given that return at the end of the year or so, you know? Are there things in place really?
All right, thank you. Thank you for your question. First of all, let me make the point. It is said in life, there are two things that are certain, debt and taxes, right? You have heard that? Yeah, right. So in other words, taxes is a must, because unless you pay tax, you can't have service. Government will run based on monies people pay. And let me say that to my sister. I recognize your question as very legitimate, but let me just give a background. In Grenada, we have the least, in terms of income tax, least tax country. Most countries, after you make maybe $1,000 or $1,500 a month, you start paying income tax. In Grenada, first $3,000 a month, you don't pay. And most of the workforce in the country make less than $3,000. So most people still not paying any taxes in terms of direct income tax. Now, the government, in a structural adjustment, explained to you how the problems we had. We owed $110 million in unpaid claims. We had debts, over $1 billion in debt, that we're trying to ask people to help us. So they say to us, you must help yourself for us to help you. So by sacrifices we made and the increases that we've made, it means that we're getting that $400 million in debt relief, which if we had not done, all of us still have to pay it. So it is necessary for us. In addition, we're getting $100 million to do activities in the country. So we would not have been able to do the expansion of McDonald College. We would not be able to do the water projects that we're doing. We would not be able to fix your roads. We would not be able to do anything. So, in other words, we are individually and collectively, my sister, benefiting already from the sacrifices we're making. Had we not done it, we would be bawling about the quality of life in every single aspect. Now, as your economy improves, and we have generated the jobs we want, and that is in fact coming because a lot of projects, some have already started, but much more in the coming year because of what we have done. The economy is picking up. We expect, as this happens and revenue comes in from the activities, we could then reduce possible taxes in certain areas. Now, getting specifically to the gas tax, I want to explain this because this is very important. That's why I appreciate the question you asked, my dear sister. Under the Structural Adjustment Program, we agreed, and the opposition knows it, everybody knows because it's a transparent document. To get all the help we expect to get, we have to raise property tax on each building in the country twice during the 3-year period. We did it the first time, and a lot of people, because that's tough for people. More tax on your house. So it's already signed by us, and the country knows what we signed on to. We also signed on to put a tax on financial transaction in the country. In other words, every time you go to the bank and you do a service, you have to pay a little tax on it. And also tax the credit union where poor people have their savings because they're a financial institution. That was also signed on too. Now, with the present price of gasoline, about 13 something, when the international prices dropped, that could have been dropped by $1.50 more, so you could have been paying 11 something or 12 something. Now we said, look, if we leave the price as it is for gasoline, it means that we won't have to tax people on the houses a second time. And then we won't have to tax the credit union and the financial institutions and your savings in the bank. We won't have to do that. If we did not keep the taxes, keep the prices as it is, we would have to put the taxes on the property and also on the credit unions and so on. We felt that was the worst thing to do because people are already having more trouble. The price of gasoline, remember, during the NDC time, price of gasoline was 18 something, and they never dropped the tax once. You remember that? You remember a time it was $18 for a gallon of gas? 17 something? Did they reduce it by 1 cent? Not 1 cent. Today it's 13 something. And not only that, by not bringing it down further, we are now able to give a relief to homeowners and saving in the country. And that is precisely, my friend, if we didn't do that, we could lose the $100 million we get in a year to do a lot of things that we're doing. We could also lose the $400 million debt relief that we are getting. In other words, as we said earlier on, we had to make sacrifices. So my sister, your question was very legitimate because you gave me an opportunity to explain why we're doing what. But I want to assure you that will not be permanent. As things improve, we are prepared to pass on some of the benefits to the people of the country in direct taxation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister.
If anyone of you add anything, up to your feet. Okay.
With protocol already established, a pleasant good afternoon to everyone. Wait, it's night already, forget that. Anyways, I have a question, but to answer it, I'm going to ask you, so they're linked. Now, I remember reading in the newspaper a couple months ago that there was something about a 6% interest in the minister's wages or something like that. Can you please verify that for me first?
My sister, we're not laughing at your question. I want you to be very clear. We're not laughing at you. I think people are laughing because they recognize that the one thing you must do, be very careful of reading certain newspapers in Grenada. So that's my first message. The second thing is, it is a customary law that whenever there is an increase in public servant salaries, ministers get the same increase, %. That's what we agreed on. Over the years, whether it was NNP government, NDC government, that happened. When we came into government, this government coming to election signed on to an increase in salaries for public servants. They never paid it, but they left it for the government afterwards to pay, and pay back pay and so on. Now, we said since it was agreed that ministers' salary must increase the same amount, by that 6%, we agreed that we must do what we are accustomed doing. Not a noise for so. As ministers came back and tell me, they say, Prime Minister, the amount of Alex I get now for that 6%, I ain't want it. Keep it. So most ministers, almost all of us, have refused the 6% increase. So public servants get it, so ministers didn't get it. What a while ago I said to you, a minister in a ministry $67,000 and the permanent secretary $79,000. The reason that is so is because they got increases and ministers got none.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. Thank you. You're finished?
No, that was to my question.
Go ahead, my dear.
So now, since the ministers refused that 6%, where is it exact? So concerning to that, how about, I know that everybody loves a good increase on their salary. So I was looking at the alternatives here for the petrol tax. So I had an alternative in my mind. What if you remove that increase, and since you said the ministers denied it, and here I'm seeing about $100 million in financial support from the international community and $400 million in debt relief. If you combine all those, isn't it possible that you could create another alternative to meet the revenue target? And if you do that also to reduce the petrol tax?
No, I think you. Let me explain. Yeah, no, I hear you, and that's why I want to explain, my dear sister. You asked a legitimate question, so I want to explain it. The point is, if we don't do, my sister, if we don't do what we have to do, like, for example, raise the revenue, we won't get the 100. The 100 is not something that's there for you already, you know. You wouldn't get it. So unless you did what is expected of you, there is no $100 million. And also, we would have not been able to get the $400 million in debt relief. So it means that the situation would have been compounded for us. So you would not have the revenue to fix the schools. We put in a transportation allowance for children can go to school. We make sure they can get uniform allowance. And some people need books. We have to give those who can't afford. The amount of things that we are doing, we would not have been able to do. As I told the sister a while ago, in life, to get certain things, some sacrifices have to be made. And that's precisely what we're doing. So we appreciate your question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister.
Not to comment on what the Prime Minister said, but just to commend you for the intellectual depth you have shown as a Form 3 student. I think you have done excellent work, Form 3, and I think Grenada is in good hands with young people like you. Congratulate you for that.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson Mackenzie from Prospect.
Thank you very much. Mr. Prime Minister, many of us who are here this evening, we are old. There are others who are young. I'm very much concerned about our young people and their future, especially our bus conductors, bus drivers, fishermen, market vendors. What are we doing to ensure that those young people pay their contribution to the NIS? If not, they become a responsibility on the government or some other person. I want to suggest, Mr. Prime Minister, you take adequate steps to ensure that those people, those young persons, make their contribution to the NIS. When it comes, they will get something for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wilson.
To my brother, I just want to say to you that right now there is a serious committee working on reform, certain recommendation for reform of pension scheme in the country, including that of NIS. So that is the kind of recommendation that might be enacted in law after the consultative process. Because you're right, everyone should be making a contribution to their retirement in the future. Because if they don't, it would fall on the government. It would fall on the government to meet their expenses when they reach senior citizen age. So I think that is extremely important. And so the point you made is very valid. That is something we're looking at.
Thank you. Mr. Olson Philip from Shantimel.
Good evening, everyone. Now, housing seems to be one of the biggest issues today. And I've been looking around the St. Patrick constituency, which is one of the poorest constituencies in the country. And I've been looking over the years, and I find that the housing program is running at a snail's pace. So can you tell us what is responsible for this?
Thank you.
My brother, I explained to you the problem we have had. When we came in, we had to meet millions of dollars of house repair program, house repair material taken from the firms. And it was left for us to pay. So it means that we have to, before we could ask the firm to give us additional material, we had to spend all our time paying. So most of the constituencies, not just St. Patrick West, suffered because of the inability of the government to have sufficient money to meet those basic expenses of providing more material. What I want to assure you, which is what I announced a while ago, the next budget will have a much better allocation for materials. Let me tell you, the housing program would be threefold. One, house material, house repair material. Then there will also be a soft loan scheme, which we have increased in the budget. When we announce the budget on the 25th of November, you will hear that. But we also have building of homes. And there is a new phase under the Chinese program for hundreds of houses around the country, which will be additional houses for people in the country as a whole. So there will be a three-pronged approach to deal with the housing program in the country, because we recognize housing as one of the most critical factors in service delivery in the country. All right?
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. Just before the next person's on, I want to let you know that we are winding down because the Prime Minister has to leave shortly. So we are going to accommodate 3 persons, 4 for the most, and we would ask you to keep it very brief because we have only 10 minutes remaining. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. Good afternoon, Prime Minister, and the representative of East and West, and other representative of the country. I'd like to ask a question on local government. Yeah? You've been a Democrat. You've been in power for so long. And I feel, and I'm sure many of the country people feel the same way, that government is being operated from top to bottom instead to top. So I'm asking you, when are you going to make an initiative to restore local government? I have a plan which I think is workable. A plan such as restoring the local government without costing much money, and a proportional representation policy. That is, whosoever wins the election, they get a proportion of their thing to represent their parish. And you select the representative of the constituency to be on that panel, and also the policeman, who is the chief policeman in the parish, and also 3 independent people. I'd like to know if you will take that on board, because I think government should be representing from bottom to top, not from top to bottom.
Thank you very much, Mr. Douglas.
Douglas, we'll certainly examine any ideas that would be useful in further enhancing governance in the country. But I do want to tell you this. We may not have a formal law of local government, but in fact, we are practicing a lot of local government in the country. Take, for example, a lot of the budgetary allocation that you have for different areas are in fact allocated on the basis of constituency. The constituency makes the decision on special projects. They make the decision on house repair. They make the decision on many other services. For example, the seed program. So there are in effect a number of services that are being provided on the basis of constituencies' needs. I'll give you an example. Last year, for example, my constituencies in Georgia Northwest had an allocation for special project of $250,000. The constituencies in St. Patrick's had $350,000. I'm the Prime Minister, but I don't say, because I'm the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance, that I must have more allocation in my constituency, because the needs in St. Patrick, East and West, the needs are bigger than what we have in Northwest St. George's. So there is an element of distribution from the local level. And that's why we encourage the question of constituency offices. So the representative work with his team in his constituency to bring services from the bottom up to the parliamentarian and by implication the government. But I hear you. You want to see a formal system of local government. Certainly, if we have a good proposal, we'll look at it. But I don't want to sit here and tell you we are going to have a formal local government system than we have more at this particular time until I see what you're talking about.
Thank you very much. We have a McDonald College student. Go ahead.
Good night to the Prime Minister and the rest of his fellow workers, and good night to everyone. I have a question for the Prime Minister. With it being of paramount importance, I would like to know what government is doing on relations to the Lyme and flu merger.
Yes.
Thank you.
My brother, that one is a major problem for us. The Minister of ICT has been working with ECTEL, as you know. That's the institution responsible for regulatory powers of the telecommunication industry for the OECS region. And they are now studying the proposal and looking at what they should allow, because we really do not trust that marriage as it is right now. So we are examining it, and we'll make decision on what is best for the consumers, because ultimately what we want is best service and the cheapest service. Because we know that telecommunication is crucial in terms of economic development. So we can't fool around with this. And to say to you, we believe technology, ICT is the way to go. A lot of our problems in whatever areas of services must be solved with the technological advancement available to us. And that's why we're encouraging the banks and other financial institutions. They said you must invest monies in helping young people in school, live in school, to set up their own little companies and to do things for themselves and to provide services in the communities and in the country as a whole. That's happening in the United States already, in many countries. We can do it here because the technology is available to everybody. So I'm...
Thank you very much.
Brother Dabra was just mentioning something. I'll just let him say a few words. But I'm just making a point. I agree. That is a major area of interest. And we will not drop the ball on this one because you know it's critical for the functioning of the economies of the region. Brother Dabra, I just want to add something.
Yeah, there is the, good evening everybody. There is the CASI program, and part of that is the business incubator, in which there is over $100,000 available. Like if you have a good idea in ICT or any science and technology, you would get that fund to help start your business or start, whatever project that you have. So this is available right now.
Thank you very much.
But that's an interesting thing because we want to encourage young people to come up with innovation, to be able to employ themselves and others. So if that fund is available, you need to go find out because it is available right now, $100,000. You just have to show you have a very good idea. They would, of course, have to assess it to make sure it's workable and financially feasible. And the money will be made available, and it could be happening to any young person or person in the country as a whole.
Thank you. We are now going to take questions.
Good night to everyone. With protocol already established, good night to the head table and members of the gallery. My concern tonight is with the SID program. I know a few months or maybe a year back, there was some concerns with persons living in one parish but attending school in another parish and still collecting from the SID program. I want to know what is the measures that will be taking place for that, like you in St. Patrick's. There is schools in St. Patrick's, but yet you're attending school in St. George's or St. Andrews, and yet you're collecting from the SID program or you're collecting from the bus assistance. And my another part to the question is, I want to know what is in place for persons who are collecting money from the SID program, but yet you're in schools and you've seen that the children are not benefiting from it. Sometimes there are children in school without lunch, without break, sometimes not an exercise book or a pencil, but you know for a fact that the parents are collecting the money from the SID program.
I admire that question because that same question came up, I believe, in St. Mark. The same issue was raised where parents are collecting the money and not sending the children to school. We have to do something about that. One of the things I can tell you we'll do, the school attendant officers and the truancy officers will be more vigilant now. They'll be going from house to house to make sure that those who receive the money send their children to school, because the Education Act provides for a penalty for parents who do not send their children to school and collecting their money. So we will be enforcing that aspect of the Education Act to the fullest, because you are destroying the future of the children. Yeah, you are destroying the future of your children by not sending them to school. The assistance, as you rightly said, it's something that only St. Patrick, but it's happening throughout the country, and we have to address it. With regards to children attending school outside of the parish, there are two issues to be addressed here. Based on the results of the CPA examination, you know that children can request the top 50 students can request which school they would like to attend. And normally they are given their choice. But apart from that, our policy is to enforce what you call the zoning principle, that children living in a particular area should attend school within that area. That is the basic principle. But outside of that, based on the policy we do have, whereby children do get their first choice, and that choice may be outside of the parish, that will happen. But these are issues I think we can address as we move forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. We have the final question, Mr. Jelena Glynn.
Hearing me? Okay. Pleasant good night, Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable representatives on the head table, attendees all. Mr. Prime Minister, first and foremost, I would like to congratulate you and your team for doing your best at what I presently consider the most difficult job to do in Grenada at the moment. I think you're doing a fantastic job and look forward to your continued efforts to deliver us from the current situation we're in and restore us back to a path of economic stability and continued growth and progress. That being said, someone working in St. Patrick's, having to move to St. George's for work, we've seen lately that the opportunities for employment that are being created, most of them are in St. George's currently. And the future ones seem to be in St. George's again. Not slighting St. George's for the opportunities, but someone leaving St. Patrick's, and Honorable Boson would know very well, leaving St. Patrick's to work in St. George's, doing the same job for the same pay as someone living in St. George's or closer, the impact on your disposable income and your social life, family time, is very detrimental. In St. Patrick's, we've seen a number of short-term projects. We always can depend on the good old travel. But those are very short-term, and the very vulnerable depend on those deeply. However, we've heard about two major projects over the years, the Livera project and the Port project at Sotez. Two projects that have long-term employment opportunities and benefits for the people of St. Patrick's. My question is there still a pursuit of those two opportunities? Can we look forward to seeing anything being done with them over the next 2 years? Or are those two projects dead in the water?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Address the Port project first. I do believe that we missed out on a golden opportunity to have this marina project. It's not really a commercial port. It was a marina for yachts plying the Grenadines area. And Giuliani, you will recall that we had spent almost $2 million on basic studies and preliminary works when we were in office up to 2007. The Exim Bank of China, and I really cannot re-emphasize that point, the Exim Bank of China had given preliminary approval for us to go ahead with the project. Yeah? The contracting company was here. They were located right in Sotez. They rented facilities in Sotez. They had done all of the basic work. As a matter of fact, they went all the way down to Mauchet to identify the kind of boulders they will use for the breakwater. But unfortunately, we lost the election in 2008. Knowing that government is a continuum, there was the expectation that the incoming government would have continued with the project, realizing the beneficial effects the project would have on the northern part of Grenada. But unfortunately, the new government decided that the project was too big for St. Patrick, and the then Prime Minister opted for a series of smaller projects. When the Exim Bank said, listen, we will not engage in small projects, then the then Minister of Finance said, give us a hotel project in the south instead. And because of that, we lost that project. That was a rare opportunity at the time to retrieve and recover will be very difficult. But what we can do right now, and as I mentioned the issue of the degradation, what we need immediately is to calm the waters in the low tongue by putting a breaker out there so at least we can safeguard the coastal areas. Might be the most immediate action we can take while we pursue alternatives with regards to a marina. Because I've been to St. Lucia, and if you have been to the northern part, Rodney Bay, it's similar to up here. And when the then Prime Minister said, listen, we want a marina in Rodney Bay, it was laughed at. But you go to St. Lucia now, and that's a major center. It has transformed the northern part of St. Lucia. I'm hoping that things could happen again where we can re-engage investors to deal with a project of this magnitude. But we lost a golden opportunity, and that was because of lack of vision and foresight on the part of persons who were running the affairs of the country at the time.
In the case of the liver, we clearly have not given up on that project. There's an investor group right now working through the Citizenship by Investment program, and we're hoping that that is one of the major activities we can have for the North. So we haven't given up on that project, and it's still in train. And discussions have been had up to last week with that group of investors, and hopefully that would come through as another major project in the country. But I just want to make one point. Unlike the previous government, my dear brother, we never stopped any initiative of the previous government on the basis that them who started, therefore we don't want nothing to do with it. If the NDC had not stopped a lot of the initiative we had, they might, I ain't say they might have been in government, but they might have had a few seats today. Because they were intent on stopping anything to do with NNP. Could you imagine that project in Lewis Hamilton, the #1 racing driver in the world? This man was putting a major hotel in the country. We would have been on top of the world. This man is on top of the world racing. You know, that one of the most popular in the world. Because he was working close with the government, the Prime Minister then said the man was corrupt, and therefore he wanted to have nothing to do with him. And he was on TV and radio all over the place, running the man down. The man could have sued him, you know. And I didn't know he getting money to deal with a suit of Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton just ignored him. That is the kind of mindset that's responsible for where we are today, my brother. But we are pursuing those projects.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. And as our guest of honor here tonight, I want to give you an opportunity to make some closing remarks.
Well, all I need to say, friends, I am more than pleased. I honestly didn't think we'd have much of a session here tonight. And to see the amount of people is something it's shocking, but a pleasant shock that we got. You have been a wonderful audience, and I want to assure you, every day we'll be working to improve benefits to you and the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. Have a good night and get home safely.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. And just to add my voice here on behalf of our MP, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out here, especially the students of McDonald College who have been here since 7:30 this morning and are still here with us. Let's hear it for the kids from McDonald College. And as we leave here, I want to ask a volunteer from this group of school children here to lead us in a word of prayer to guide us home safely. Any volunteers? Can you come forward, please?
Dear Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for bringing us all here tonight and having a wonderful meeting tonight, Lord. As we all depart from here tonight, Lord, and we go home, I ask you to guide and protect everyone, to have a safe trip at their home, Lord, and guide us and protect us, Lord, in your Son Jesus Christ, and I pray, amen.
Thank you very much. Pray that each and every one of us will reach home safely with God's guidance. Have a good night.